When you first started, what was something that you first believed that you now look back on and go, okay, no, I don't believe that anymore?
It's that if you put a lot of work into thinking really carefully about your assignments in terms of like how they're categorized and how they're weighted and like how frequently you're going to do this, like you do a lot of preparation in terms of being very systemic about how your grades are set up and your tests are weighted and things like that. If you do a lot of prep work in that, then you can be confident that you have an objective system for how grades are like measuring students. Like if you've thought very intentionally about how much I'm going to weight tests and quizzes and how many opportunities I'm going to have for this and for that, like confidence that like you have like some sort of like objective system.
Yep.
And I do not believe that that's true ever. And an experience I have that like relates to that if I could go back, I would do again, I would do differently 100%, was in my very first year of teaching. I was teaching like a sophomore level math class, and I had a senior in that class who was like retaking it. And the senior like had lots of other stuff going on and could only come to class like inconsistently. And so would miss lots of things and things like that. And in like the last week of school came back and was like, hey, I need to pass this class. Like, what can I do to pass this class? And I looked at my grade book, which I thought I'd set up in this perfect way. And I'm like, well, if you get a minimum of like these two high scores, they were like close to A's on like these two tests and the finals, then that will bring your grade up to a passing grade. And then you'll be able to like pass the class and graduate. And that student did not get a passing grade on those tests. Instead, he got like mid B's on those tests, going in cold, having like missed most of the semester. And I said, I've set up this grade book to be objective. It did not measure it right. I'm not going to give this person a passing grade. And in retrospect, that's like the stupidest thing I could have done, because like, they didn't get like this arbitrary point that I had set, but the students still got like high B's on knowing the content and knowing what needed to do. And I think that actually like that was like a turning point in like my reflection of thinking about grades. But like that's something that for a while I thought about, of just like, if you do a lot of things to set up the system could be objective. And as I say that right now, that just sounds so wrong. There's so many things about that wrong, both in terms of teaching and just the world that we live in.
I laugh because like I had a very similar perspective on it. And for me, the catalyst was a professor who asked a question, something like, what happens when it takes somebody 11 weeks to learn the content in a 10-week course? So like they achieve complete mastery on the 11th week, but the course ended on the 10th week. So what do we do about that?
This excerpt of the CSKA podcast is from episode number 47, which is titled From Matthew McMatherson to Cody McCoderson, an interview with Dan Schneider. You can listen to this full episode, as well as hundreds more, by searching for the CSK8 podcast on your favorite podcast app, or by going to jaredoleary.com.